Let's paint up the Rebel Alliance half of the Star Wars Legion starter set, which consists of an AT-RT Walker, Troopers, and Luke Skywalker. I will be zenithal highlighting these models, so I start with black primer. To speed up the priming, I'm going to put everything on a paint stick with some rolled over duct tape or double-sided tape. You want to place the models right next to each other, and depending on the length of your stick, you may have to use 2 of them. After that, prime your models completely black using either a black aerosol primer or an airbrush. You will notice that I did not mount these weapons onto the AT-RT Walker. I hold the base of the weapons like this and then paint the rest of it black. You'll want to leave the mounting area unpainted, and I'll show you why later. Now for the zenithal highlighting portion, you'll want to use either white primer out of an airbrush, or you can use something from an aerosol can, and paint everything at a 45-degree angle all the way around. This leaves the top white and the bottom sides dark like in shadow. For the 3 AT-RT weapons, do not paint them white, leave them black. Next, you'll want to remove all these models from the paint sticks so you get full 360-degree access around all of them. Let's start with the skin. I'm going to use Crusader Skin, Dark Wood, and Magic Blue as the 3 skin tones. For the models with lighter skin like Luke Skywalker and some of the Troopers, I paint them with Crusader Skin. This is going to be applied onto the faces as well as any of the exposed hands. For Troopers with darker complexions, I use Dark Wood, and I apply these onto the same areas that I would have applied Crusader Skin. For these 2 handsome fellows right here, I use Magic Blue Speed Paint, and I apply this onto their heads. If you want it to look like a lighter shade of blue, you can use Speed Paint Medium and add a little bit of this onto the blue, and it'll give you a slightly lighter tone. For the light brown uniform color, I'm going to use Palette Bone, and this mainly goes on the inner shirts as well as the pants of all the Troopers. Some of them have exposed long sleeves as well, and I put this Palette Bone color on those areas. I paint up Luke Skywalker's entire outfit almost completely in this Palette Bone color. The only areas that I leave non-Palette Bone are his boots. For the rider on the AT-RT Walker, he gets basically the same uniform treatment as the rest of the Troopers. For the ring that goes around the caps, I apply Sand Golem Speed Paint, which is a slightly redder tint of brown. I did forget to color the top of the caps in Palette Bone, so I go ahead and do it here. For the rest of their uniforms, I am going to be using Hardened Leather Speed Paint, and this goes on all the jackets as well as the backpacks on the Troopers. This is also a color I use for any of the gloves I come across. On some of the models, like these 2 blue guys, there will be straps on the backpacks that you'll want to paint with this Hardened Leather Speed Paint as well. You will also want to paint any bandoliers, pouches, or belts with this color. Luke Skywalker's boots will also be in hardened leather. He also has an assortment of pouches all the way around his belt. You will put hardened leather on these also. Again, the AT-RT Trooper gets treated like everyone else. The last color we'll be using for base coating is Grim Black, and these go on all the weapons for any of the Troopers, including the special weapons. I also painted their boots with this color. For the Troopers with the special weapons, don't forget that they have rifles on their backpacks. The handle of Luke Skywalker's lightsaber should also be painted black. I went ahead and did the same thing for the handles of the AT-RT Walker. One other accessory that gets black would be these binoculars. For the hair, I use yellow, black, and brown, and I apply this randomly onto all the models to give them a different look. Luke Skywalker's hair is a darker blonde. For this, I combine some Hardened Leather Speed Paint with Zealot Yellow, and it turns out pretty good. For the 3 guns on the AT-RT, I will be dry brushing them with Uniform Gray. Using a makeup brush, I make sure there's only a light dusting of it on the brush, and then I lightly dry brush them onto all the 3 guns. And that's about all I do with these 3. Time to add some silver accents. For this, I'm going to use gunmetal, and I apply it onto the lightsaber, also onto all the belt buckles. And then on some of the rifles, I accent just a few pieces in 3 areas like this, just to make it look a little bit more interesting. Now on this rotary cannon, I apply it onto these areas to give it a little bit more definition and interest, but I don't overdo it. On the walker, I put this on the antennas, I put this on some of the engine areas and onto the exhaust pipes. And then one of the areas that I like to put it on are all these struts and shocks. I make sure that every one of these is painted silver. For Luke's lightsaber, I used Turbo Dork paint again. This one is called Ice to Never, and it is a nice bright blue that goes really well. And with the color shifting properties of this paint, it looks really good on a lightsaber. If you're wondering why I left the walker white, you're about to see why now. I'm going to use strong tone wash, and with a big brush, I'm going to paint the entire thing with this wash. This does 2 things. It fills in all the shadows, and also gives the entire model a very quick weathered look. You will see at the very end that it gives it a very nice effect, as if this machine has been out in the wild for a while. One of the last colors I'll use is Void Shield Blue. This looks really good on anything that's glass. For instance, the lenses on the binoculars, as well as the goggles on top of the leader's caps. The viewing scope on top of the MPL-57 Ion Trooper will also get this blue, and then this screen on the walker gets blue also. Onward to the eyes. Now the 2 Duros Troopers, the blue guys, get red eyes, and for this I use pure red, and with a detailing brush I apply them into the sockets. For the humans, I use matte white, and with the same detailing brush I apply them into the eye sockets of the human troopers. For their pupils, I use this common trick of using a sharp end of a toothpick and then dipping it into matte black paint. Now make sure there's not too much in the tip, but if you do it correctly, you should be able to apply the pupils very easily this way. First, apply it onto one eye, and wherever the direction that one eye is looking, try to match with the other eye. Luke Skywalker has blue eyes, and to make him look a little bit more distinctive, I will be using deep blue acrylic paint, and with the same toothpick method, I apply the pupils onto him. Onward to basing. I will base this the same way that I did the Empire Army before this. I'll be using some rocks, and then also some green flocking material that looks like grass, and some tufts. To put the rocks on the bases, I use some gel super glue. I apply it randomly onto various areas in the bases, and then I go ahead and put the rocks right onto the gel super glue. Once they set, these rocks should not go anywhere, they should be permanently on. I adorn Luke Skywalker's base with some of these rocks as well, to make him look a little bit more special. And then for the troopers, this is one little trick that I like to do. In order to tell 2 squads apart, I put rocks on the basis of one squad, so that one squad has rocks and the other doesn't. Like you see here, these 7 guys have rocks and these 7 guys don't. For the green flocking, I use regular Elmer's glue or dollar store Elmer's glue, and then I put it onto a palette, swipe some up on a very old brush, and then I apply it onto the bases that I want to put the flocking material on. After that, I dunk the entire base into the tub of flocking, knock all the excess off, clean them off the rims, and then after that, it looks like it's got grass in the base. I do the exact same thing for the walker, but its base is much larger, so you'll have to use more Elmer's glue and more flocking, but otherwise it's the same process. On to the tufts of grass. To make these stick more permanently, I use regular super glue, and then I use a screwdriver to randomly scrape off areas of the flocking so that I can apply some super glue and then the tuft of grass. I put several on larger bases like this one for the walker, and for the rest of the models, I just vary from small tufts to larger tufts to give it more variety and keep things interesting. As a finishing touch, use some black primer and paint it onto the rims of the bases just to clean everything up. At the very end, protect all your work with 2 layers of matte clear varnish. Now those 3 weapons on the AT-RT Walker I had left out, they are able to just friction fit into this little hole there. You can take any one of them off, put a new one on, and now you have all 3 weapon options. And with that, I've painted up the Rebel half of the Star Wars Legion starter set with Luke Skywalker and his daring band of Rebel troopers ready to do battle on the forest moon of Endor. Thank you so much for watching this video. Follow me because I have the AT-ST Walker as well as Ewoks on order. Those are coming up soon. Till my next video, happy wargaming, happy hobbying. I'll see you soon.